Hey divas, welcome to my February video coming to you at the end of March. In my last video, I think I said I would slow down on reading in February. That was a lie. I guess I technically did, because I only read 16 books in February, which I understand is still an egregious number, but that's like 2 less than January. I'm on my grind set mindset, and I've just multiplied the days of the week, and now I have 14 days in the week, and you just don't understand that, I guess. Just talking until I've run out of all of the oxygen in my lungs. Cool. Before I start talking about books, you're not talking, you're not real, I want to say a little disclaimer. Number one, if I'm holding my mic just directly in front of my face, ignore that. I don't have a stand, and if I move the wire too much, my phone will just pretend it's in earthquake mode and just shake so much. So I'm gonna try not to do that, but I can't promise that I won't just hold it directly in front of my face. Here's my disclaimer. These are all my opinions, and they are not a personal attack on you or your opinions or the authors. If I don't like a book that you really liked, that's fine. And if I loved a book that you hated, that's also fine. Everything will still be okay. That's the disclaimer.
Hey, let's go.
Book number 1 of February was Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. This was a historical romance, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This was the second and final book in the Secret Shanghai universe. It's a 1920s retelling of Romeo and Juliet in Shanghai with gangs and monsters and a bunch of crazy shit. One thing about me is if I see an Instagram recommendation for a book that has no description and maybe a hashtag or a trope, and if I can borrow it immediately from my library, I will read it. So that's how I stumbled upon this universe, this duology. It was entertaining, and I liked the characters for the most part, and the writing was pretty good. And spoilers for both this book and I guess Romeo and Juliet, even though that's simply a half-century-year-old story, they both die in the end. And I think I have mixed feelings on the way that like everything was wrapped up. I did read this a month ago. I just know that in my head, whenever I was finishing the book, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And that's as far as the thought and memory goes. So yeah. Book 2 was Model Home by Rivers Solomon. This is a horror book, and I gave it 3.75 stars out of 5. This is the story of the Maxwell siblings, mostly focusing on Esri, who is the main character of the story. They are all forced back to their childhood home after the mysterious and sudden death of their parents. I highly recommend checking the trigger warnings for this book if that's something that you need. There is a lot of horrific shit that happens in this book and to the characters in this book. It is a painfully brutal story about trying to find yourself and fighting to love yourself after being systemically hurt and neglected. I remember when I was reading it, I did not want to put it down because I just needed to know what the fuck was going on. So yeah, if you want a horror book, I would recommend this one. Book 3, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This is a dystopian story, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. If you somehow are not familiar with The Hunger Games, it is a cute little coming-of-age story about a bunch of kids competing in a fun fight to the death on live television. Hopefully that helps you. Hopefully that helps. This is the second time that I've read the first book in the series, and I know I will read it again. This is a YA book, but the way that Suzanne Collins writes is just so good. She writes knowing that teens can understand harder and heavier topics, and it's just so good. Book 4, Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. It is a romance book, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. This was another vague Instagram recommendation, and I didn't know anything about it before I started reading, because that's like my whole bit. So from what I saw, it was presented as a romance and nothing more. I thought I was gonna read a sweet little sports romance. I was wrong, and I will never learn. This is not just a romance. I will say again, if you are someone who relies on trigger warnings, I highly recommend checking the trigger warnings on this book. This is an intensely terrifying book. It is, in my opinion, more a story of survival and resilience than a romance. The romance felt like a B-plot, which isn't a problem, but I usually read the romance genre to turn my brain off and not send my body into fight or flight. That's why I read and watch horror. It's contained, and I know it's happening. There were points that this book was just so incredibly hard to read. The violence that the main character goes through is unrelenting, and honestly, the only reason that I finished this book was because I needed the main character to be okay. Honestly, the way the book ended was exactly what I wanted. That doesn't mean I felt good after reading the story. I think it was harder to read knowing that this is something that real people have to go through, and even though Iris got a happy ending, many people in real life who are experiencing things like this don't. So yeah, again, to finish off this review, check the trigger warnings if you want to read this book. Okay, books 5 through 10. The next 6 books are interesting, to say the least. I've decided not to share the title of the series or the books because it doesn't seem like many people have read these books, and I also couldn't find much information on the author, so I just didn't feel comfortable sharing that. I will still talk about them. So I accidentally read 6 books in an erotica series, and I know you might be wondering, how does someone accidentally read 6 books of erotica? And the answer to that is I see book, I buy book, I own book, I read book. A literary genius, someone call me. But to be fair, the book doesn't have a description, and the titles of the individual books literally give nothing away. You may also be wondering how I stumbled upon an erotica series unknowingly. It all started on my birthday, and I was hanging out with my best friend, brain turned off in a bookstore, when we stumbled upon the book. The title caught my eye, and I was extremely enticed by the size of the book, which, by the way, is 800 pages long. It's a hexalogy, so that means 6 books bound together in one book. Yeah. This is Breaking Dawn by Stephanie Meyer. This is a 768 page book with like thin paper. Like, this isn't like normal paper, at least in the copy that I have. But the other book has just like regular size paper. It's not thin, so it is a bit longer than this, and this was hell to get through. This was hell to get through, and I'm gonna be honest, I think the other book was worse. The other books, 6 of them, I read 6 of them, just so that you don't forget, because I won't. So we saw this gigantic book, which my friend and I dubbed the Zombie Bible, which gives you a hint on what on what goes on. We had a little laugh, and I bought it, of course. At the time, I had barely glanced at the cover, and I honestly can't remember if I'd realized that it was a series when I bought it. All I knew was the title of the series, and that it referred to itself as a tome, which I thought was silly, because wizards have tomes, and no wizard would have this book, except for me. I am implying that I'm a wizard, so watch your back. I had to read this book. I paid $12. These books felt like the author watched The Walking Dead and thought, damn, I wish all of the characters were boning all the time, everywhere. And then they wrote 800 pages about it. I didn't give any of these books star ratings because these books made me evil and they made me want to be violent. And just to save time, I didn't have any good opinion on this book. So that's books 5 through 10. Book 11, Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. This is a dystopian book, and I give it 5 out of 5 stars. This is the second book in the Hunger Games series. Katniss, the main character, has won the Death Olympics and now gets to live a peaceful life. Everything is chill. She doesn't have PTSD, but also she does have to play in the Death Games again. The only thing I wrote in my reading journal was, Suzanne Collins must be stopped. She's too good at her job. I don't have much to say other than that. It's a good book and a great series. Fuck you, Suzanne. That's not in a hateful way. She just makes me angry. She's too good at writing. Book 12, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is a contemporary young adults book, and I give it 5 out of 5 stars. This is the story of a young girl named Star witnessing the fatal shooting of her childhood best friend Khalil at the hands of a police officer. It talks about how she metabolizes the violence that she has witnessed and how she grows through her trauma and finds her power through her voice. It is a modern day classic. I believe many people share that thought. It is a must read. It is the hard truth that many Black people are extremely familiar with. It is an important story that many young people, particularly white people, should read. Book 13, Feed by Mara Grant. This is a sci-fi dystopian novel, and I give it 4.25 stars out of 5. This is book 1 of the Newsflesh series. Another vague Instagram recommendation. I saw this one and I didn't realize it was part of a series. I also didn't expect the political and journalism aspects and found it pretty interesting for an apocalypse story. This is the story of adoptive siblings, Georgia and Sean Mason. I put an emphasis on adoptive for a reason. I'm gonna stop there. After reading such a dog shit zombie series, I was hoping for something better, and this was better. The main character's disability was also an interesting factor in this futuristic apocalyptic scenario. I thought the world building was really cool and compelling. I liked all of the little details. It was pretty intriguing. Book 14, Deadline by Mara Grant, a sci-fi dystopian, and I gave it 4 stars out of 5. This is book 2 in the Newsflesh series. Not sure how to talk about the next books without spoiling the first one. This is a continuation of Sean Mason's story as he struggles with what happened in the last book. He is a bit of an unreliable narrator as he deals with his grief. I thought it was interesting to read as Sean, as he actively loses his mind and is fully aware of it. Book 15, Blackout by Mara Grant. Another sci-fi dystopian. I also gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. This is the third and final book of the Newsflash series. I think there's a bunch of novellas. I'm not reading those. I have love-hate opinions about this book. The writing is still good. The world is still intriguing. But did you remember that I emphasized the word adoptive earlier? Spoiler, here's context. At the end of book 1, Georgia dies. And throughout the second book, Sean is dealing with his grief poorly. And by poorly, I mean he is actively hearing, speaking, and seeing George. So what if I told you that the government cloned Georgia? Because of reasons? But also, why not? This is already a world where the dead walk. And then what if I told you that Sean and Georgia get reunited? That's cool. And they kiss. And are in a relationship. And have been in a relationship. Which is cool. They're not really related. I think my issue is that the characters have insisted and repeatedly pointed out that they are siblings without the context of adoption. I could talk about the entire series for a long time, but that's like my only gripe with it is that book 16, the last book of February, Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. This is a romance. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. This is book 1 of the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I don't know how to summarize this book without reading the summary, so I'm going to read that. She is off limits, but he has never been good at following the rules. For the first time in her life, Clementine Emmy Ryder has no idea what she's doing. Luke Brooks is Meadowlark's most notorious bad boy, bar owner, and bachelor. Yeah. Yes. I'm gonna be honest. I read the second book in this series a couple years ago, and then my friend gave me her copy of Done and Dusted, this book, and I remembered having a good time with the second of the series, but then I read this one and I was like, I don't know. What I wrote in my book journal was, I forgot I read this book. Apparently, it's been 3 days, and I forgot that I finished reading this book. So that's not good. I described it as forgettable. This is a older brother's best friend trope. I think that's a trope. I think the relationship was cute, but I also think the characters and setting was just bland. I really love romances where the FMC is passionate about something outside of the relationship, which Emmy should be, but I just didn't feel that. I just wanted more about Emmy's experience overcoming hardship. It kind of felt like when she was making progress, it was happening off page, and when it was on page, it always shifted focus to Luke. I don't know. It just wasn't for me. I don't know. All right, so that was all 16 books that I read in February. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to comment down below. Comment something. Let me know if you can read. Let me know if you can read down below. You can follow me on Storygraph or Instagram. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.